no, we're glad you were here today. Today we have a panel on balloon animals.
Yeah!
All right. Oh, good. So the bar is low. They are easily excitable. All right. And he says he's got lots of skills. So, yes. No. We have our panel with unique career opportunities at NASA. Okay. So not everybody wears this suit, but there are other opportunities. So, but while you are here in this tent, okay, there are lots of resources here with Air Educate. The purpose is to get youth excited about different aerospace and aeronautical opportunities. So not all just about pilots, but different opportunities. There are lots of resources, and they are free. Okay, lots of online, lots of things you can do in person, and scholarship information and different things. You can ask questions back there, okay? And you can also thank people in this corner. Okay, we've got our Siemens group here, and there's some of our sponsors that also make this available to you at this wonderful price. Yes, you can clap for them, yes. Now, just a thing real quick that I like to tell everybody. During an air show, there's sometimes some noise, okay? We like airplanes, right? Right? We can agree on this? Okay, okay, this side not so much. Okay, this side we like airplanes. Okay, so while people are presenting, there are sometimes some jets that go by, and they're really cool, right? And they're really loud. And there's nothing that you're going to hear as we talk as they fly over. So, in the event that a jet flies over, you will see this. Okay? The appropriate response is, yay, airplanes. Okay? So we're going to practice. Okay, so, yay, airplanes! And we will continue to cheer until it is quiet enough to resume. Okay? Because it will happen at periodic times, and we cannot, we don't have control of the tower here. So they will fly over, and we are going to be excited because they are burning money at unearthly amounts. And we're going to cheer for that. It is exciting. I try not to think about it, but I think about it. Okay? So, when we see this, yay! Excellent. And sometimes you may not be cued by a jet. They might just see that you guys are like falling asleep, so they may just throw that in there every now and then just to make sure that you're still with us. Okay? So yeah, they may do the teacher thing on you, just like bring you back in. And he may juggle. He says it may happen. Okay? No promises, but it may happen. So stay tuned. So I'm going to turn it over now to April, and she's going to introduce our panel, and there will be people around for questions. They will be here. They're really friendly, and they have like the coolest logo ever. Everybody loves them. So here we go, April. It's yours.
Thank you. All right, thanks everybody for being here. Super excited. We want to talk to you today, share a little bit of our stories about what it's like not being a pilot or an astronaut at NASA. There are lots more of us than you think. And so hopefully it'll give all of you some ideas. You know, there's lots of different ways to get engaged with NASA. So I think we're going to have a great time. We'll start this off. So we'll have plenty of time for questions and answers at the end. The other components, that there's no one coming in right after this as well. And so Dustin, who you'll meet here in a couple minutes, has also agreed that afterwards, if you want a photo op with, as we call him, Spacey Casey, then you can have pictures with him in his suit, you know, the whole thing too. So plenty of time for all of that. We hope this will be nice and interactive for all of you. So without any further ado, we will get started. So a little bit about us. Like many of you probably know, but NASA is made up of lots of different centers. So a lot of people, when they say, oh, you're at NASA, they think maybe we're at Kennedy Space Center in Florida or Houston for Johnson Space Center, but actually NASA is made up of lots of different centers, and we're all over the country. A lot of us here are from NASA Aeronautics, and there are 4 NASA Aeronautics Focus Centers as well, 2 in California, 1 in Ohio, and 1 in Virginia. So lots of different places where NASA actually is physically. However, we're also in a lot of other locations as well. So we work with universities, we work with lots of companies, and this is just one of our programs to show you some of the different universities that we work with. So we really are all over the place. What you also find out too is that not all of us live exactly where a NASA center is as well. So we're really pretty spread out. You know, it's the new age where we can do lots of different things all over the place. So we like to point that out just because when people say they're nowhere near NASA, there's actually a lot more of us around than you might think. So that's kind of fun and exciting too. So the question is then, so what can I do at NASA? And really the answer is pretty much anything. So if you think about your skills, your interests, there is probably a job at NASA that aligns with what you do. So for example, I mean, this is just a sample of some of it. So we have lots of people that are on communications teams. We have a legal team, lots of HR, accounting. We have botanists who are trying to grow plants for, how are we going to grow plants in space. So again, pretty much anything you can think of is a job of some type at NASA. So lots of ways to get engaged, and you're about to hear from some of our team here, and we all have jobs that are kind of what you would think of as not necessarily what you would think in terms of a NASA job. So again, wide open for you. So a little bit about myself. So my name is April Lanat. I'm the STEM integration lead here at NASA Aeronautics. I'm from Mars, PA, so you've met a Martian. There you go. Probably just supposed to work at NASA right from the beginning. So anyway, I'm a doctoral student in aviation education. I started off as a teacher. So I was a middle school teacher. I taught high school, university level. I led education programs in an air and space museum. So kind of a wide variety. I never thought I would work at NASA. I came from Mars, is a really tiny little town. So I never thought I would do that. That was something that, real people don't work at NASA. It was kind of a little town where I lived. So, and it wasn't engineering that brought me to NASA. It was actually writing and communication. So I came to NASA that way, and I write and communicate and teach about our technical content. So kind of a different way to get at NASA. I'm the first person in my family to have a bachelor's degree or higher. Again, this was not something that was just sort of like a straight, narrow path that was just laid out there. And a lot of us have very different journeys to get to NASA. I love what I do. I absolutely love what I do. It's a great job. Being a part of a federal agency is something I never expected as well. So that's a whole different component. So really whenever we think about all these different things that NASA offers, I mean, as a federal agency, we're taxpayer funded. So you've helped us get here to talk with you. So kind of an interesting way that all works. So anyway, but lots of, we're not just, the other thing is that we're not just NASA people, we're like real humans too. So, so we have lots of different interests. I love astronomy. That's probably not a huge surprise, but, I love gardening and camping. Our family, we went to a cat sanctuary, rescuing cats. So it's one of those, there's lots of different interests. The reason I bring that up, though, as well, is because I think all of us and our varied interests and skills help us do a better job at NASA, because we have lots of different interests. And what makes NASA unique is that there are no rules on how to do it. We're figuring it out as we go because we're doing things that no one else has done before. So we're writing the rule books, and what it takes is a lot of different kinds of people, a lot of skills, lots of interests that may not be the straight and narrow. It's not just knowing math. It's not just knowing engineering. It's how do we solve problems creatively for things that we don't even know are problems yet because we've never been there. So really interesting place to work, really creative, which also makes it really fun and different because you never know what you're going to expect from day to day. So with that, I want to introduce the rest of my team, so I'm going to let them all introduce themselves. Then we're going to ask a few questions, and then we're going to turn it over to you and allow you to ask some questions and find out some good stuff too. So Dustin, all yours.
Thank you, April. I am Dustin Hitt, and I am from NASA Langley in Virginia. If you look at my little bio here, a lot of my education had to do with nursing and medicine. In first grade, I decided I was going to work for NASA and I was going to be a pilot. That did not happen when I graduated. It was a 2-year wait, so I chose medicine instead. That dream to work at NASA never faded. And so, as you can see, my career has kind of taken me all over the place, and then eventually I wound up at NASA and been here 15 years. I went from the military, and that is a path a lot of people take, right, to get to NASA. However, with Navy medicine, and also with the Marine Corps. I got to do a lot of things and learn a lot of different things that has helped me get to my career at NASA. And I think one of the biggest things is empathy. And so when you're taking care of patients and you're handling emergency situations, also you have to be a very good communicator as a nurse, right? And so I think all those things have just pushed me and led me into the right direction and ended up finally finding my way at NASA Langley.
Thank you, Spacey Casey. So my name is Jessica Ariola, and much like my colleagues here, my journey to NASA has not been linear. And I actually, when I was young, did not necessarily think or say that like I was gonna work for NASA. I was a good student, middle school, primary school through like middle school, and then got to high school and thought, I can't afford college. So I started, maybe not going to classes, and I was at risk for not graduating high school. So after that, I did community college, and then eventually transferred to a 4-year where I got a bachelor's in communications. And it was during my time at Cal State San Bernardino that I heard from a speaker that was doing communications at NASA's Armstrong Flight Research Center. And from that point on, it was when I kind of was like, okay, I guess NASA's a possibility. Took me a few tries, was rejected a few times, and now I'm doing public and digital engagement, which means that sometimes posting on social media, and then sometimes being an event lead for events like this. And I'll pass it over to Andrew.
Thank you, Jessica. My name is Andrew Carlson, and I'm a multimedia producer at headquarters in Washington, D.C. I'm actually on the same team as Jessica here, and I support ARMD, Aeronautics Research Mission Directorate, and there's a lot of different things that I'll do, kind of anything that they need in a media sense. I'll take pictures, and I edit video, I shoot video. I'll even do things like be a moderator on a Teams Teams meeting, and set up things like that, and troubleshoot things like that. I always want to be very helpful in any way that I can, which is a big part of how I got to this really lucky and fortunate job. It was really serendipity that got me here. When I was a kid, my dad was in the Air Force, and so for that reason I wanted to be a pilot. I'm more right-brained, and so I want to also be an artist. So I really felt like this was just like this really poetic way for those two things to come together. That I'm like sort of an artist about being a pilot. So I love you, Dad. And so that's really cool. And so I just want to always do everything that I can in a media support way to help the team and help ARMD promote its message in communications. So that's pretty much it.
So good morning, everybody. I'm Kara Mandasica. So I'm probably one of the newest NASA employees compared to all of my peers. I've been here for about 2.5 years. Spent the bulk of my career at the Department of Homeland Security. I've been trying to get into NASA for years. So I will say anecdotally, if you are trying to get into NASA, whether it's internships or full-time employment, do not give up. NASA is competitive, so do not feel discouraged, but just continue to regularly apply. In my role, I am the external stakeholder integration lead. So in layman's term, that essentially means I work a lot with our congressional stakeholders. So I work a lot with our Office of Legislative Affairs. I answer or support the answering of a lot of quick turn actions from Congress. And so I have actually found that my background in sociology and then also being a classically trained ballerina has helped me stay calm under pressure, because a lot of my job is requesting my coworkers to respond sometimes within an hour. That is sometimes the amount of time that we have to respond to Congress. So look forward to talking to you all more.
I have to follow a ballerina? Jeez, all right. Well, my name is Robin Hertz. I'm a librarian at NASA Glenn in Cleveland, Ohio. I've been with the agency for a little over 11 years now. Much like everybody else up here, my path was not a linear one. When I was in 3rd, 4th grade, wanted to be a teacher, so my entire life was do all the things to become a teacher. I was that total goody-goody student that would stick around after recess and offer to clap erasers out back, and yes, I just told you how old I was without telling you how old I was. So I went, I made, I became a teacher, and I hated it. It was not for me, it was not filling my bucket, and I needed to leave a classroom. So instead, I found a position at a public library. They were looking for a homework help center coordinator. So I was like, all right, I still get to hang out with families and kids and help kids do their schoolwork. And I got my master's in library science from Kent State. And at the end of the program, one of our projects was to interview a librarian in a position that we would want. So I found a random website on the NASA, or an email on the NASA Glenn website, and I emailed and they reached out. So what was supposed to be an hour kind of a project interview so I could fulfill my graduation requirement turned into like a half-a-day thing on site at NASA Glenn. And fast forward 11 years and I got that guy's job now. So sorry, not sorry. I love this gig. I would have never in a million years thought I would ever be able to work at NASA. Being a librarian for all the projects that NASA does is pretty incredible. So everybody's like, oh, you're not an astronaut and you're not a pilot. And I'm like, no, but I'm a research librarian for pilots and astronauts. So also, I did not love math and science when I was a little kid. I also hated to read. So all of those things, you don't have to check all those boxes to be able to do it. That is not to say that you shouldn't be doing your math facts and summer reading club, and you should be doing all of those things. It's okay to not love it. And if you're ever in a role that you're like, this is just not filling my bucket, go find something else to do. Because when you find a job that you are in love with, and you get to come and do stuff like this with folks like you, it's a dream, absolute dream job.
Awesome, thanks Robin and everybody. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna answer a few questions that we've already figured out, and then we're gonna open it up to you. So Andrew, I'm gonna pick on you first, right? So I'll pass this microphone off to you for a second, but we wanna know what led you to your current position. Share with us some previous career experience, maybe your education experience. So let's start with that.
Sure thing. So yeah, I studied art. I'm from Kentucky, and I studied art. And so I did. When you study art, you really have to. Well, some people really know what they want to do very specifically. Well, for me, I was not sure. So I did a variety of things. I mean, photography was what I focused in college on, and so I came out and I was doing a lot of different things related to photography. I was a photography assistant for a number of photographers in my area, and then I had gone to a YMCA camp when I was very young, very similar. This out here is very much like summer camp to me, and I had gone to summer camp at this great place, and I had found out that they were going to do a newsletter this particular year, many years ago now at this point. And I was like, oh my gosh, to be a photographer at this really cool place that I love so much. And what it allowed me to do, which is I think a good tip, is if you have a passion project, you just pour yourself into it, and then people will notice your work. They'll be like, wow, this is, because I worked harder on that, certainly up until that point, probably, because I just loved it. It was just great. It was, out in the woods and taking pictures and all the fun stuff. And so then the advertising agency noticed my pictures and they were like, oh, these are pretty good, because actually I was just putting in so much. And then they offered me a job. And then my first editing video job was the camp video. And I was like, oh, I kind of like this video stuff as much, or maybe more than photography. And so that really started out the advertising agency work. And so I guess I was able to do more and more video stuff, and I could see my commercials on TV, and that was really cool. Obviously, that was like really great, and I got to be a cameraman for Vanderbilt football down in Tennessee because I moved to Nashville, and also for the basketball team. And I did all sorts of things like that. I was very open to anything related to media. I even did a couple teaching assignments or teaching roles because they were related to media, and I was just like, well, my long-term goal isn't to be a teacher, but it was like, well, I'm certainly gonna learn a lot about what they have to say, and I'll learn a lot about what I'm teaching, obviously. Just because if you have to teach something, you learn it in a different way. You learn it more. It becomes, you have to really break it down to easily understandable bits, and then you're like, then you'll learn something even more about it yourself. So teaching is a great way to help you learn as well, which is interesting. I've always been open, and then I got to DC. My wife is an attorney, and so there's a lot of attorneys in DC. We moved to DC, and so she started that to me at DC, and then I got there, and I had this really great, diverse work experience. I had worked at Comcast. I was producing commercials, and I would produce commercials. This is before DC, but that's part of my work experience. I would produce commercials. I would write them, edit them, shoot them, direct them, and I would even do the voiceover. And it's more like that helped me get this job. My willingness to do anything and everything attached to production. So that's another kind of thing that helped me. I was just like, yeah, I'll learn how to do sound. I'll learn how to do video and photo. But some people are more specialists, but I was more of an jack of all trades type. So, whichever path is good for you, but that's what worked for me. And then I really got really lucky with NASA, and I just I think engaging with people and connecting with people is, you have your skills, but then connecting with people is a big important thing. Like being friendly, being thoughtful, being observant, and talking to people, looking into the eye. I'd say that probably helped me along the way more than any real skill necessarily. You have to have the skills, but then it's those other things that really go a long way. And I just was so fortunate to find myself here. I was like, wow, how did this happen? And then the whole pilot and artist thing, and it just was a beautiful thing for me to end up here. So I hope that wasn't too long.
No, that's great. Thank you, Andrew. So Jessica, I'm going to pass it over to you. And I know you've already talked a little bit about this, but we'd like to know a little bit more about when and how you realized that a career at NASA was actually a possibility for you.
In the green shirt, what is your name? What is your name? Nolan? And how old are you? 10. I was about your age when I decided, I was about your age when I first took a flight, and I remember thinking, we get on this thing, or I had looked up into the sky before, and I thought, there are these big hunks of metal that just are up there. And I didn't understand how they stay up there, and even today, I still am fascinated by the fact that these things are just up there, and they're flying, and they get us from point A to point B, and I took an interest in aviation. And so I always thought I would love to be maybe a flight attendant. Maybe I want to work for an airline. So when I went to college and I decided I was going to do communications, I thought I'm going to work for an airline doing communications. And then, like I mentioned earlier, there was a guest speaker in my class, and it was a public relations class, and they were talking about how they do the government version of public relations, public affairs, for NASA's Armstrong Flight Research Center in California, which was about an hour and a half away from where I grew up. And so I didn't know that there was a NASA center out in the desert. I only knew about JPL in Pasadena in the Valley, and I was like, okay, so I have 2 NASA centers nearby. Maybe I can also do communications for NASA. So that moment was when I noticed and realized that I could do communications for NASA, but then it also, I had a light bulb moment where I was like, I don't have to, there are so many more opportunities out there. So just about any big company and or government agency that you could think of has a communications department. So it kind of broadened my mind to the possibilities of where or who I could work for. But yeah, after that I set my mind on getting a job at NASA, and I applied about 5 different times over the course of a year and a half and was rejected 4, and by the 5th one, but thanks to that I'm here today.
Awesome, thanks Jessica. So Dustin, this next one's for you. So I think a lot of you are probably wondering what a day in a work day for Dustin looks like, right? So do you want to tell us about that, and also what a great part of your job might be? Pretty quick view.
All right, let's see. So a typical day for me. Well, first of all, what I forgot to say before is, guys, I am from Louisiana. I'm not from New Orleans. I am from another continent below New Orleans. I grew up in the swamps where we hunt and fish for our food. We had a garden. We didn't eat, right? So I'm just throwing that out there. If I can make it here, so can you. So a typical day. A typical day for me. So in the grand scope of things, I am with the Office of Communications, right? And inside of that umbrella of communications, there's a lot of different ways to get there. So I wake up and I get to work, and part of my communications is, we have to check emails. But my emails vary across day to day, because in communications, you're not just doing a single solitary job. So the great thing about communications, I can go to any of the other mission directorates at NASA, so let's say Artemis, right? That's space exploration or science or aeronautics, and I can sit in on those meetings and learn all that I can so that I can become a better communicator, not only to stakeholders in our government, but also to the general public and also schools and colleges. My title at NASA, and get ready for this one, I was hired at NASA to be an exhibits technician. And a technician is just to, like the building you see here today, right? You set that up and you make sure the air conditioning won't kill anybody, and make sure the models are all there, logistics and legal. And so my boss at the time, and I owe a lot of my career to her, she saw something else in me, and then opened me up to a communication specialist, right? So NASA now classifies me as an exhibits technician and an engagement specialist. And like I said before, that engagement specialist could be from preschool to Congress, right? So you have to know everything in between. They also gave me another title, and they're like, wow, it's great, let's do something else. So at NASA Langley in Virginia, I am the resource manager. So any publications that go out, I am in charge of that. NASA.gov has a set of literature and posters and free things for the public. I have to stay on top of that. But not only that, we'll ask our pilots and we'll ask our engineers, like, hey, I need something written up on our new X-59 aircraft, right? And so they'll type it all out and they'll send it to me, and then we have to go in and we have to change all that wording so that even one of us can understand what they wrote on a piece of paper, right? So they talk at a level that most of us probably wouldn't understand. So that is another layer of what I do every day. So I don't wear this to work every day. This is the part of my engagement. This big suit, it's about 15 years old, and I have been doing it for about 13. And so this suit used to sit on a table and people would walk up to it and just kind of glance at it and walk away. And I thought, well, that was boring. And so one day I decided to put it on and gave it a name. I chose Spacey Casey just so people are aware that Casey can be a boy or a girl's name. So when I'm wearing the helmet and I have it down, you can't see me, but I can see you. And so we didn't want to stereotype that it's just the man that's an astronaut. So Spacey Casey became a thing. NASA headquarters loved it, and they picked it up, and now I travel across the country, me and a handler, so I always have a lot of volunteers. like, you know, I could pick Jess, and we're gonna go somewhere cool. Like the White, yeah, that's right, I forgot. We were invited to the White House. We did the Easter egg roll, and we met the president and the first lady, which was pretty awesome. And we've done that a few years. Love you. And so, you know, I have a lot of volunteers trying to get that, you know, to come with me and travel. And I really get to meet a lot of interesting people, not in Congress, and, you know, astronauts. They'll come up to me and we'll have long conversations. And not only that, but like, I do events where there are maybe some celebrities, and the celebrities are also very excited to talk to me. So, you know, I kind of need to know what I'm talking about, right? So that's where all that communication skills comes from, right? I need to know what to say. At any time, any one of us could be quoted, right? So we have to know what we're talking about. And so one day I was doing an event in Washington, D.C., and Will Wheaton, the actor, was on stage. He came up to me, he asked me to go upstairs. And when I got upstairs with him, the whole cast of The Big Bang Theory was sitting there, and we all had a chat for an hour, and it was amazing, one of the greatest moments of my life. So there's my word break.
Awesome, thanks Dustin. And I'll throw in, because education is at NASA part of our communications team, because really when we're educating people, we're communicating and figuring out different ways. And I think all of us on this panel, one thing that's really great about it is that we aren't focusing on one thing, that we have lots of different things, and we're at all kinds of meetings, like Dustin said, where we get to find out, and we have to find out, we have to understand what all these other programs and projects are happening at NASA, because we're responsible for communicating that. So people don't go up, for the most part, you don't walk in, you know, and find a NASA engineer, but you could find any one of us, or you can reach out on social media, or, you know, through our website, or any way, and then we're the people that have to be able to help, you know, find those answers that you're looking for. So it's kind of that great blend of understanding enough about the technical content to be able to communicate what our other experts are doing as well, which is really pretty fun, because we get to kind of be nosy and get to be a part of all of the different things going on at NASA. I don't know, I love that part of it. So, all right, so I'm gonna pass it off to Andrew and Caramanda and Robin. So I have a question, and so I want to know what something is that surprised you about working at NASA. So I'll start with you, Andrew, and then I'll just pass it on down.
I was surprised how down to earth everyone was. No pun intended. No, I think that pun was intended. No, they're really, you know, you're talking about really just accomplished people, and they're just so nice. I think that's part of what makes them so good at what they're doing, is their ability to really talk to people and be patient. And and then also how many different designers and artists there are. I mean, I would assume there would have been many, but there are more than I expected. So that was good.
So I would say for me, what's been the most surprising is the amount of cross-collaboration within the agency. So I would say, even though I'm the only person that does my job, I cannot do my job without my coworkers. It's not possible. So I rely on their expertise, specifically their technical expertise when we get congressional requests. So I would say, even if you're more introverted or shy, I would say working at NASA, be ready to come out of your shell and work with other people. I found that it's really helped me grow, and I've been able to really learn and leverage my coworkers' experience, which I hopefully think makes me a better employee as well.
Yeah, those are great answers, guys. Something that really surprised me was how, like, family we all are. And not just like AirVenture NASA family. This is my 7th time coming to AirVenture with NASA. But this is one of those things that, like, we all just kind of turn into family. The first day you meet a new intern or a new employee, a lot of times we all just say, welcome to the NASA family. And it's that cultural aspect of working for NASA, which is one of the best places in the federal government to work, right? So this is what? 10 years. How many? 10 years straight? Perfect. Over 10 years. But yeah, it's just that kind of, everybody takes care of each other. And that's really what you want in a workplace, right? Because work won't always love you back. So you need to be able to have a tight-knit group of family at work to be able to lean on when you need that.
So all right, so I'm going to switch it up for a little bit. We've got some more questions, but actually we want to know what the questions are that some of you have. So we're going to take a few questions from you, and then we'll talk some more and see where it goes. But who's got a burning question or even a squirrel question? Go ahead and raise your hand. I'll bring the microphone over. So what would you like to know?
Hello, I'm assuming you guys have to work with your in-house counsel a lot. Do you ever have to work with external counsel extensively? Because I know a lot of times that can be challenging, especially when they're not on your payroll, so you can't really communicate as effectively.
So do you mean counsel as in like legal counsel? Okay, legal counsel. Oh, that's an interesting one. Ooh, we're gonna give that to Carol.
First off, great question. So I would say we recently had an event at NASA last year. It was on Capitol Hill, and it was called Aero Day on the Hill. I know Jeff and Andrew were there. And so the focus was to really educate Congress and share with them about the NASA mission and what we're doing from an aeronautics perspective. And so this was an all hands on deck activity. It wasn't just NASA. We had university partners that were also there. But even though they're not, I guess, on our payroll, what we try to do is build relationships with people before we meet them. So we're very much constantly reaching out so that when we do need something, people always kind of answer the call. And I think even after this event, we make sure to send thank you notes. Something as simple as that builds that relationship so that when we need them again, they are always responsive. So I don't know if my coworkers have anything. That was a good question. Maybe you want to be a part of our NASA legal team in the future. So something to think about.
I'll throw in there something as well, because as the STEM integration lead, we work with organizations, we work with other federal agencies, and we work with industry. And so some of the legal logistics about what is needed and allowed and required for each of these groups requires different things. And that's an awesome question, because that is something we juggle a lot, because we might say, well, we can do this, but we can't do that. So for example, NASA cannot sell anything. Like, we are never allowed to sell a product, right? But if we're working with a company or, industry and they're selling something, so they may have very specific rules or what information can be shared. Maybe it's proprietary, maybe the technical things, as an agency, we're sharing all of our findings with the world. Aeronautics research, like, great, guess what we just figured out? And everybody gets that information, right, so they can use it. And then we work with one of our industry partners, and the last thing they're going to do is give away their trade secrets, right? And so with the legal team, you're not allowed to share it. So it involves a lot of communication and a lot of juggling so that nobody steps on anybody else's toes, because companies have to get along with federal agencies and organizations. We all have to get along, but we also have to legally get along as well, too. So that's an awesome question. All right, who else has a question?
First of all, thank you guys so much. My question is, in the days of social media, a lot of organizations, especially NASA, you guys are working so hard to put out information to the public for people potentially interested in careers. I know you guys do post a lot, but what is the best way to maintain trying to stay up to date on job listings or current research? Because sometimes it is overwhelming when you're just looking for something simple and you get inundated with all of the information, which is fantastic, but also intimidating.
Who wants this one?
Yeah, you're not wrong. We do have a ton of resources out there, but sometimes it gets harder to sift through them. I do want to shout out our new website that we went through a recent revamp on nasa.gov, and so we're trying to stay hip and with it, and so we went through a website revamp. I'll say it's a lot more user-friendly now. It feels a lot more searchable. So if you haven't checked out the nasa.gov website, that's a good place for information. But also if you're on social media, on whether it's Instagram, Facebook, X, and a few others. We're not on TikTok, not allowed. But you can find a lot of stuff about internships and careers through @NASA-interns. And we try to keep our handle simple, yet just @NASA and then the subject. So @NASA-interns and @NASA-internships on Instagram. But we try to highlight the, we have kind of cycles when you can apply for internships. And then also if after this you guys want to come hang out with us at the pavilion, we do have a NASA careers counter this year across from the STEM area. And so there are different folks and different careers where we're intermittently changing out and staffing so that people could talk to us about our jobs, and you know, whatever your interest is, you can kind of get that tidbit from someone in real life.
Just another point is that a lot of people that work in NASA are contractors, and so I didn't go the route of USA Jobs, .gov or anything, and I was not an intern. I just got a job through, I guess, like it was Indeed or something. So they're out there as well.
So to that point, if you go to a specific NASA center, so if you Google NASA Glenn's homepage and you go to doing business with NASA, it'll list all the contractors that are on base at NASA Glenn. All of our librarians, our archivists, and our historians across the agency are all under the History and Information Services Division, and most of us are contractors. So we do not, our paychecks do not directly come from NASA, they come from a company that NASA pays to pay us to do work. So some of us are contractors. Bring that up, Andrew.
Great question, and I would say LinkedIn too. I know we mentioned that, but there's a lot of postings. Again, there are more contractors with NASA than there are civil servants, so we're a whole mix, and so it can be really intimidating and hard to figure that out because there's no one specific place, but those were great places to start looking. So we'll do one more question, then we'll jump back into a couple more, but it actually has to do with careers. So, all right, who's next? Who wants to ask a question? Don't be shy. He's okay. All right, so then we will jump in. Oh, sorry.
Do contractors get the same level of benefits as the civil servants?
I'll jump in with that. It's different because contracting companies, it's really up to them. So it's just like any contractor. So it is very different. Federal agency, you have all the federal types of things. But every contracting company is different. There's negotiations. I mean, when you work directly for the federal government, there's no negotiations. This is it. But every contracting company tries to more. And I will say, aerospace is a very competitive type of area. So they want to be that place where there are multiple contractors all working with NASA, and so they want to if they want Robin, then they're going to try to beat out the other contractors. So it can be really pretty interesting. So they all do offer very different things. As aerospace as a community in general, it's a great career because they do tend to pay pretty well. They, the benefits, there's lots of things that go along with it. So, I was a teacher for a long time, very different structure, not exactly as supported. So when you're in this kind of industry, it can be, it can be pretty good. So it's a great question. All right, so going back to that, so Amanda, one of the things that we want to talk about a little bit is what advice you might have for students if they don't know what career they want to do.
Thanks for the question, April. So I started out pre-med in college, and then I took biology and realized this wasn't going to work out. And so I segued into sociology. I remember going to my career counselor at my undergrad university, and I was telling them basically what my interests were. So I knew my interests were engaging with people, getting to know them, but I didn't know what kind of career that could be. And so I was told about sociology, and sociology is all about understanding people, their communication styles, their preferences, their background, and how to work with them and commingle with them. And so that was really, for me, how I was able to get started. And what was the second part of the question? You probably tried to miss it.
I'm actually going to combine one.
Okay.
So let me be hard to hear. So along with that, right, what kind of interests or abilities or skills would be helpful to someone if they wanted to succeed in this, with NASA?
Thank you. So I would say the second part for me was to be your biggest advocate. My kind of personal motto is your career is your responsibility. I always say it's not my parents, it's not my supervisors, it's not my coworkers, it's mine. So I've always been a very big advocate for myself. If I wanted to move up in a job, or if I didn't feel recognized, I think that's really important to be an advocate for yourself. I find with NASA, having a very supportive supervisor and chain of command, I think I can speak that everybody at NASA wants you to succeed, but make sure that you're advocating for yourself. So if you have an interest, I would say now's the time to tell your teachers or your parents and really let them know what that is, and then explore that further, because essentially I can say for me, I feel like I don't work every day because I love my job that much. And so being able to find your passions and interests and hone them now, you will find a career hopefully at NASA that can really kind of leverage your expertise and experience. So there's not one size fits all when it comes to a career path, especially not at NASA.
Awesome, thanks, Caramanda. And I think I would add as well that while we all have different skills and we all have varied backgrounds, being good at what you do, whatever that is critical. So as Robin said, it can be pretty competitive sometimes to become a part of NASA. But at the same time, the one thing we all have in common, I think, is that first of all, we're passionate about what we do, but the other thing is that we work hard to be the best at what it is that we can, whatever those skills are. So, when you're following those things you want to do, it may not be exactly what and it may not be the one thing that you think is going to get you to NASA, but just get good at your skills, period. And that more than anything can really help you. So don't just be a photographer, be a great photographer and work on whatever it is to get you there. And it may take a while, so just keep at it. All right, so along those lines, Robin, could you tell us about a time when your career path did not go as you thought it would, and then how it turned out, and then I'll just let anybody else, because all of us, most of us, our stories are the same. Nobody sat there and said, I'm gonna be Spacey Casey, and then from age 5 on did everything, to get to be Spacey Casey.
Yeah, so like April was saying, I think a lot of us kind of have that blinding road to get where we got, right? So like I said before, when I was a kid, I really wanted to be a teacher, and I became a middle school science and social studies teacher, and it was just kind of one of those like, man, this is just not what I thought this was going to be. I felt like I got sold a bad bill of goods. Those of you that are teachers, all the credit in the world, word, right? Yep, all you, man. Couldn't triple my salary to send me back to a public school classroom right now. So when I realized that, and when I found my job at the library and I got my library science degree, I remember having a conversation with my then supervisor at the public library, and she was like, oh, you should, if you want to make any money doing this, you should go get your master's in library science. Well, spoiler alert, there are no rich librarians, so do not do librarianship to get rich. But I would have never thought that I would have landed a job at NASA doing research. And really, and part of that too, how like all of our days are so different. I'm not sitting in a basement with like an Edison ball swinging over me cataloging dusty books. That is not what librarians at NASA do. No, I do not get paid to sit around and read all day long. Over in the NASA pavilion, like Jess was saying, just down the road here, if you swing by, they brought me up to AirVenture to give away free NASA books. Like, what is this world that I live in that they're gonna pay me to come and hang out with folks like you all week and give away free books. This is like a Disneyland for a librarian. So it's a pretty sweet gig. And parts of my other job that we all talk about things that we didn't know that we were gonna have to do. A week ago, I was at the Great Lakes Science Center, which is where the NASA Glenn Visitor Center is, and we are celebrating the 65th anniversary of our meatball. So everybody knows what the meatball is. The designer, who was a graphic artist at NASA Glenn, the agency put out this thing about, hey, we need a new logo. It's, we're a federal agency now in 58. And they said, we need a logo. And this guy designed, his name's James Monterelli, he designed the logo. Fast forward to last Monday, and I got to meet the family of James Monterelli. They came to celebrate the meatball with us. Like, I have no business doing stuff like that. I'm a librarian. But doing the history stuff on the side got me to that gig. So it's all just kind of a winding path, right?
Who else wants to talk?
So Pat's from the swamps to NASA. You could write a book. Yeah, right. So I wanted to be a pilot. It was a 2-year wait. I chose medicine. I got stationed in Bethesda, Maryland, which is considered the President's Hospital, and President Bush was our president, the first one. I'm that old. And so he was supposed to be in the motorcade. I was a paramedic at the time for the Navy, and he was in our ambulance, right? So everyone thought he was on the road. He was actually with us, which I always thought was cool. And so I'm sitting back there with President Bush and talking to him, and most of you, you might know, he was a pilot. And speaking to him, and I told him about my dream was to be a pilot, and that's all I've ever wanted to do. And having a conversation with the president in the back of an ambulance in the Navy as a paramedic just kind of hit me right at that moment to pursue that. And well, long story short, I stayed in medicine for a good 10 years. It was all emergency medicine. And I even transferred over to labor and delivery, and I did that for a while. And so, I delivered many of babies. And so, transitioning from medicine and making that decision, you know what, I am going to follow my dreams to either become that pilot and work at NASA, and it ended up just being, I have 7 months left of pilot training, so yay for me, and then finding my way to NASA by medicine, having my own business, and that business was a moving company called Martian Movers, because I always had NASA in my head, right? And so what a weird path from the swamps to the military, to nursing, and then my own business, and then finally finding my way to NASA. So what a roller coaster ride, but I ended up getting there, and I've been there for 15 years. And so I just want to let my colleagues know that I only applied once, so. I would drop the mic, but.
And we won't be hearing from Dustin anymore. Anyone else want to talk about their life did not go into plans? I'll say as an English teacher, that was I wanted to be an astronaut, and that was, being an English teacher is not a good route to becoming an astronaut, by the way. But I wasn't confident enough about my math and science ability, and it wasn't until later, after I graduated high school, that I realized, first of all, it's not a race and a competition, like who's the fastest at math in your head, but what you do with it. But I wouldn't have imagined, that my writing would have gotten me to NASA, the same kind of thing. I will say, I didn't have to apply multiple. I was a fellow, and then it just sort of flowed, but that's okay, because I was that kid, and growing up in a small town, like you said, where, I laugh and say I was destined to be, at NASA from Mars, but that was not a place where people really actually encouraged people to go and do things like this. It was, it's a farm town. It was, that's just not what you do. Why don't you go do something practical? And, so there really weren't all these people around to say, okay, here's the path you have, here's what you get to do. And so you just kind of, do the things that you think are right. And I really didn't see NASA as a real possibility, and it just sort of happened. It was kind of a lot of different circumstances. So I think, it didn't go the way I planned, for sure. I would have never picked this crazy, meandering path, but at the same time, it turned out way better than I could have planned, because I didn't realize the skills I was learning, the things I was doing was actually helping me get better at what I do now. And when I interviewed first for a fellowship, I was a teacher. I was teaching in a really small rural town. We had, I was the high school science teacher. We graduated about 20 students a year, and here I was at an interview in Washington, D.C. with federal agencies for a position to support education. You don't know what they're looking for, you don't know what they're asking, and what they were looking for is someone who could do a lot of different things. And so when you live in a small town, you have to do a lot of different things because there aren't enough people to do everything by themselves. But they were looking for someone who had experience working with rural populations. I would have never known that, but it was actually that kind of knowledge and that kind of experience that helped me have a voice for people that I didn't, that I wouldn't have expected. So definitely not a path that I selected on purpose. And I think that's, if there's any message that I think of for all of this, is that, just be good at what you do, go after what you want to do, and if you want to work at NASA, then, try to get there, but there's 1,000 paths to get there at the same time, or anywhere else that you want to work. So with that, I will ask one more question for everybody, and then we're going to open it up to other questions, take some pictures. We'll also be around because I know not everybody wants to say their question in front of you and the rest of the universe, so we'll be around if you want to just talk to us a little bit more. But I would say, let's see, sorry about that. Okay, so if you had to pick a skill that you use at NASA that you never imagined would be as helpful as it is, what is one of the skills that is incredibly helpful? So, I'll start with Robin.
Well, Dustin gets dressed over there. No joke, be a storyteller. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a librarian. If you don't tell your story, no one else is going to. So we're all up here telling our story to you because we don't want somebody else to do that. And if we don't tell our story to you, that's it. It dies with us. So just like you walk up to the museum and you see all those oral histories of all the pilots that have come before us, those histories are there for you to learn from them. So hopefully you're learning from those who are in front of you, not just here at NASA, but all over EAA. So you gotta be a good storyteller.
I would say for me, be receptive to feedback. You're not always going to get it right. I would say there's mistakes all the time in your job. I know I've been told by my own leadership, by my coworkers on things to improve. So be open to the fact that you're not going to always get it right in your job, and be ready to improve and not take it personally. Because it's really not about us, it's about the mission. And so I think all of us, while we love our jobs, we are serving the NASA mission. And so just kind of being open and receptive to that.
I guess how many times some of my other talents have come into play. Like I'll do voiceover work sometimes, which is really cool. I mean, so that's unexpected that I got to do that for some NASA videos. I'll be like, I'm happy to, and so that's cool. And other just tinkering things that. Like I've helped out with some AV installation types of things, and just because I was like, well, I was kind of curious how that worked, and then I sort of figured it out, and then solved the problem so just those kinds of things have been a surprise. How different ways I've been able to find myself being resourceful and helpful. So I'd say that.
For me, it's probably being bilingual. So Spanish was my first language, and it's something that I never thought I would end up using at NASA, but it's actually great skill to have for me, especially with Spanish being the second most spoken language in the United States. When I'm at public engagement events, I use it quite often, and recently we launched Aeronautics in Spanish website, and so we provide both content on social media and also on the web, and that also includes having STEM resources in Spanish. So the bilingual skill, I would say, was one of the unexpected ones, but it's been a really good one to have and to be able to contribute that for NASA.
For me, I think in nursing, I've learned to be empathetic. It goes for everyone, right? So my NASA family, the people I engage with, just be empathetic. We all have a story. We're up here sharing ours, but we all have that story. And also being a nurse and getting to talk to a lot of these people, getting to know their lives, and some of my patients have the most interesting lives, and you just would never know. Just care, right? Be a good person and care and be empathetic. And just it can change their day, right? So when people do it to me, it changes my day. And I'm just fortunate enough to work with great people that you end up loving it, and every work day is a great day.
Well, I got just one quick one. Just curiosity, how much that plays a role. Being curious about what NASA's doing, the programs, but then also just like the things that I'll do is like I'm curious about how that works, and how maybe you could fix it or something like that. So curiosity is really important.
I think for me, I never imagined that my teacher skills would come into play at NASA. And when we do large events, we have over 100 people here that are with NASA. And so coordinating people, juggling schedules, things that teachers do on a daily basis. And you have a bunch of engineers running around and trying to like corral them and get them to focus. You realize that being a teacher actually carries over well into adulthood, and I use it for a lot of public engagement within our own team. So I will wrap up with this part because I want to make sure that you understand how you can get involved with us as well. So we do have our internship program that we talked about. Starting at age 16, you can start trying to become a part of NASA. I will say, much like everybody else said as well, there are lots of people who apply 2, 3, 4 times. Like, don't give up. I think persistence is one of those things that all of us have in common as well. So high school internships start at age 16. We have spring, summer, and fall sessions. They're always ongoing. I will say that the application periods close early, so we have to stay competitive with industry, and they select their interns far in advance. So we realized if we want the best talent, we have to start doing that soon too. So go onto the website, lots of information, there's lots of different kinds of internships. Our internships are paid. We don't feel it's fair to ask students, and students of all ages, right, to juggle having a part-time job at McDonald's while going to school, while having an internship. No way. So they are paid opportunities, which is great as well. So we have virtual, hybrid, and in-person, so you don't have to live near a NASA center. There are lots of virtual, especially post-COVID world. Like, I live in Colorado. I'm not going to have an intern in DC. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, they could live there, but it's going to be virtual because there's no reason to have to be at a center for what I do. So please do that. Please, share that. We do have an email address as well, so if you think of that question later when you walk out, you're like, oh, dang it, I should have asked. Go ahead and send us an email that comes to our STEM team, and then we will get it to whoever needs to answer that question. So with that, any last questions before we have some photo ops, or just open it up for you to come up and talk with us? So any questions for the group?
I was wondering, how did you get that spaceship you have on right now?
So this spacesuit is actually bought as a replica, so the materials in the suit are actually real. There's no Kevlar in it, and of course we took the life support out. Our real spacesuit weighs 300 pounds. I stripped this one so that I could wear it here on Earth, right? So when we bought it, it became an exhibit on a table, which was boring, right? And this suit you're looking at right now is about $15,000, and that's because of the materials that it's used. So that's how it became. Also, when we get pictures, we also have some giveaways here on the table, just so you guys know.
So your internship is only U.S. citizens, but what about international hiring?
That's a great question, and there's a whole section. If you go to the internship section, it's actually a great place to find out about all kinds of international. So we do have some cooperative agreements with different countries. I can't list them because it changes, because the dynamics of the world change. So there are certain countries we work with, certain ones we don't, and again, that changes. Same with hiring practices. So most international employees work with contracting companies. It does make it a little easier. Again, there are limitations depending on what kinds of programs and projects. So some are open for international and some are not. It's a little bit of hunting, but honestly, if you go to the internship site, it's really good starting point to kind of cover all things international. So there are possibilities. They are somewhat limited. We are a federal agency, so we're bound by certain, specific things. But it's not a closed door.
There are also a lot of universities and other organizations that we work with, so it may not feel like it's directly with NASA, but then it's also, doing work with each other. We have a colleague over here, Peter, that works at JPL, and JPL is partially NASA funded, but the majority of their funding does come from Caltech. And so I know that JPL is a lot more, I would say, international friendly. So JPL is also a really good center to look out for international opportunities.
we do work, like we said, we work with JAXA, we work with the European Space Agency, we work with a lot of different international organizations, so sometimes you might not be working directly, for NASA or with NASA, but you might be working with one of our international partners, and that's another great way to kind of have that.
That's a great way to gain experience, or if when your path eventually leads you to NASA.
All right, any other questions?
It's not really a question, but coming here today, I was just curious. I wasn't expecting to meet all these different careers, and when you think of NASA, you think of engineer, science, astronaut, astronomer, and that kind of stuff. So it's really cool, especially for myself. Definitely don't have a linear path. I studied motion science, taught music, and I'm still currently meandering about figuring out my life. So it's really cool watching this. Thanks, guys.
There's a man over there that had a question.
What is zero gravity actually like?
Dustin? What is zero, have any of you experienced microgravity? I did a zero-G flight. Yeah. So, I don't know, it's probably different for everyone. I mean, the key is not to throw up. I will say from my very limited experience with it, for me, your body is built to be on Earth. This is where we were designed biologically. And so the first experience with that kind of feeling is your entire body freaks out. Because everything from the inner ear, which helps you with balance and everything, just gets completely thrown out of sync. So definitely, and different people adjust to it differently. And mine was very limited and not in space, but that your body just doesn't know what to do. So it's a really interesting thing, Dustin.
I think you hit all the points, but I will say my favorite thing was I got 2 inches taller. There's no gravity. No gravity pushing on the spine. You can get about 2 inches taller.
All right, any other questions? We don't want to rush you. We're here. All right, with that, feel free to mingle.